702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
26 minutes to 11 o'clock. Welcome back. My name is Thabo, Shole-Mashao. I'm in for Clement, and we're together till 12. And thanks for your voice notes, your messages as always. I think you might have heard already, and you might have consumed it in the media, that U.S. President Donald Trump said on Friday that no U.S. government official would attend the gathering of the world's leading economies that's taking place in Johannesburg later this month because of what he said were human rights abuses. And I'm referring to that huge G20 summit that we have been speaking about for eons now, and I'm sure you are G20'd out, but nonetheless, it's important to get this on the record and understand this a little bit further, as we've asked some of our guests who are experts in the matter to help us understand it. We have John Streamlau, Wits University's International Relations Honorary Professor. He joins us on Zoom right now. Prof, thanks for your time. Welcome to 702. Good morning to you.
Thank you, Thabo.
And Dr. Faith Mabera also is joining us right now, Post-doctoral Research Fellow at Wits as well. Doc, thanks for your time. Welcome to 702. Good morning.
Good morning, Thabo, and good morning to your listeners.
Thanks. Now that I can hear both of you so clearly, maybe let's kick off with you, Prof. How important is this, and how significant is this boycott? And will the absence of the U.S. officials really affect in any negative way the influence and effectiveness of G20 this year?
Yes, certainly. In the short term, it is a stick in the eye of South Africa, which Donald Trump has been habitually keen to do. He's a bully, and his executive order on February 7th, 2025, shortly after he assumed the second term, was a stick in the eye because it cut off all foreign assistance to South Africa, and it gave refugee status to Afrikaners, so white Afrikaners, privileged Afrikaners. I don't fault Durko for making the extra effort at all for trying to engage the Trump administration, and I thought Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to Washington was timely and very professionally done, and it showed the lies of the Trump administration. But nevertheless, this was inevitable. I took a deep breath when J.D. Vance was announced, but I exhaled when I saw that the true colors of the Trump administration were flying high in this denial of any participation in the G20.
Before we go to Dr. Faith, Prof, sticking with you just a little, will it also affect perhaps the attendance of other major powers in the world, especially some European countries? Will this deter them from participating as effectively as they would have wanted to? Professor? Let's try one more time. John Streamlau, are you there?
Yes, I am certainly there, and I could answer this question.
Yeah. Sorry. It's your turn.
Well, the major powers will take advantage of the gap that Donald Trump has created. He doesn't really care, but because he's working on his own cover-up domestically, and in the light of the Democratic resurgence last Tuesday, I'm not surprised that he is deflecting attention by calling off the attendance in any way in South Africa. He's made South Africa an issue unnecessarily, in my view, in the U.S. domestic politics. But the interesting question is, what will the other major powers do in the absence of the U.S.?
Yeah. And Dr. Faith, this brings us to you because we are supposed to be handing the presidency over to the U.S. And in their absence, clearly, there will be some awkwardness there, and there will be some visible, almost embarrassment. And if anything else, it leaves a sense of lack of continuity. How are we supposed to now, as South Africa, play to this huge moment on our shores to our benefit, despite the egg on our face that Donald Trump is really imposing?
Thank you, Thabo. So I agree with Prof. Standard's assertion that this is hardly surprising given developments we've seen under the Trump 2.2 administration, really castigating South Africa. It's almost like a pushback, some sort of vindictiveness around Pretoria's engagement in really putting forward the case against Israel at the ICJ. So it's really created a surge of tension between Pretoria and Washington that we've seen playing out for the majority of this year. But in saying that, I think first, this is a crucial moment for us as South Africa because it presents the first time that the G20 summit is held on African soil. And we've seen this also dovetail with the choice of the theme that South Africa is seeking to really advance, that notion of promoting solidarity, equality, and sustainability in really shaping the discussions at the high-level engagement and at a high-level interaction among the G20. And it's important here to really zero in on what the G20 is. So for all intents and purposes, the G20 is the premier forum for global economic governance. So this bringing in all these key global, the world's leading economic powers. But for us, on one hand, we are faced with crisis, but I would argue there's also opportunity therein. Crisis because we see that the absence of the U.S., which still maintains its position, at least in nominal terms, as the world's largest economy, will complicate a lot of the consensus building around global priorities. When you look at issues like climate change, debt relief, inequality, etc. So there's certainly going to be a complication of efforts on that consensus building at that level. But in saying that, South Africa and other G20 members could also use this particular moment to strengthen solidarity among non-Western powers. In fact, South Africa could also see this as an opportunity to really zero in on its purported claim to advance the African agenda as a core pillar of its foreign policy. So this can be seen in really navigating and showcasing some of its diplomatic credentials in leveraging South-South cooperation, in leveraging African solidarity, in really making a strong case for Africa's collective pivotal role as a key actor in global governance and in global policy decision-making. So that's how I see this moment. And you're right in saying there's going to be a bit of a rupture in the institutional continuity of key things, particularly because the U.S. we need to hand over the baton to the U.S. for the 2026 presidency. But I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that this is a key moment for us, particularly as Africans on African soil. There are key issues that still need to be leveraged.
We would have thought that we are over this bridge now. I mean, we saw a delegation, as Professor Streamlau had said earlier on, we saw a great delegation presenting a very formidable case in the White House earlier, and we realized that maybe perhaps we could have mended fences, we could have mended relations with each other. What went wrong between then and now? Because it appeared as though all was well. Yes, disagreements were going to be there nonetheless, but out of nowhere, this is triggered again about imagined crisis in South Africa of people being killed. Dr. Faith, what do you think is behind this? Is this just really a facade, an excuse of sorts, a mirage that really doesn't exist in order to avoid coming to South Africa for a bigger picture that some of the issues that you have ventilated on, the ICJ for one, are those the real issues, not necessarily the genocide that he has been speaking about?
For me, I see the U.S. as, and particularly under the second Trump administration, as remaining true to form. And by true to form, I mean we've seen it doubling down on a very transactional approach to foreign policy on one hand, but also underscoring this preference for unilateral action as far as multilateral engagement is concerned. But it's also interesting because it's reflective of how there's, as I mentioned, I wanted to zero in on the notion of vindictiveness on one hand, but also therein is a kind of inclination for the Trump administration to really reduce multilateralism and multilateral fora to utility. So in this case, it's only seeing multilateral fora as useful insofar as it's in service of American strategic priorities and interests. But it's also a very nefarious form of geopolitical point scoring. So, for instance, so this was an opportunity to really try and maybe isolate Pretoria, to really castigate it, cast a shadow over some of the points in which the two countries diverge. But so it's using what it considers the tools at its disposal, particularly because we all know that the U.S. has been a key architect of the current system of global governance that we see in. It's played that leading role since the end of the Second World War and really championing that post-war multilateral order. But it's increasingly retreating, and it's retreating because there are certain currents within the American US foreign policy that are more sort of have a predilection for transactionalism, for isolationism, for unilateral action broadly.
Sure. It's 14 minutes to 11 o'clock. You're on 702. My guest, John Streamlau, Wits University's International Relations Honorary Professor, Dr. Faith Mabera, Post-doctoral Research Fellow at Wits University. And we are just exploring this issue of the U.S. not sending any official to the G20 meeting anticipated later in the month, and whether this is taking us backwards as far as our diplomatic relations are concerned with the United States. President Trump saying that he's not sending anyone and insisting on the persecution of Afrikaners in South Africa and saying we are still doing bad things in South Africa. And if we should worry about that at all, or should we use this opportunity to the best of our ability, and if anything else, prove to the rest of the world that what he's saying is just imagined crisis. There's nothing of the sort. I'd love to hear from you as a listener, as someone who is involved in these things, as a South African. What do you make of it? Feel free to venture your thoughts, your opinions on 011-883-0702, 011-883-0702. Alternatively, send a voice note to 072-702-1702.
Let's walk the talk.
702.
702 indeed. 11 minutes to 11 o'clock. Coming back to my guest. Prof. Streamlau, let's maybe start off with you in this segment. Is this an indication of things to come as far as our relations with the U.S. is concerned? I mean, there are many other issues economically that are yet to be unveiled, especially given that now the government is back in running and the shutdown is over. Are we going to see the more hostile economic engagement with the U.S. as coming from President Donald Trump, or this is perhaps just an exception from here? It's smooth sailing.
That's a domestic political issue for the United States to resolve. But I would like to speak of the opportunity that South Africa has as the current president of the G20. And one of the options is to have a quiet consultation with the leaders who do show up in South Africa about downgrading their participation in the 2026 U.S. sponsored, which is Trump is now calling to Miami, the downgrading their participation, or a more radical solution would be, in my view, although it's unlikely, that they would pick a different chairman, South Korea or Britain or some other G20 member to be the president in 2026, because this is so extraordinary. I mean, for the U.S. to refuse to participate in the 2025 G20 is abominable, and it should be seen as that. And I think South Africa has the moral standing and the political clout to go ahead and try to broker a deal that would downgrade the U.S. participation in the hosting of this by virtue of not knowing showing up, or even the more radical solution is an alternative a president. This is a very loose organization, and it could actually surprise us if the catalyst was right.
Won't your suggestions, won't they come with, given the character that we're dealing with, sour grapes and throwing toys out of the cot, with serious implications such as AGOA perhaps?
Well, this is always a problem, but there was bipartisan support for AGOA, and I think that we're turning the corner in the U.S. This is the last gasp of the settler population, and I think that the demographics are clear that the U.S. is going to become a minority state in the next decade, and so we have to get through the Trump bullying, and I hope that South Africa can rise to the challenge of having a decent and good and productive G20 meeting here in on this month in Johannesburg.
Yeah. Some of the text messages that have come through. This one says, "Morning. We do not care if Trump comes or not. He's a narcissist and cares only about himself. He's genuinely the most destructive leader of so-called superpower." This comes from Celeste. Another text message says, "Important to note that most international governments are not baking the Trump narrative about white genocide, e.g. EU baking a massive trade deal with South Africa. The white refuge narrative is not popular worldwide, but maybe it plays well in conservative American circles." Just another perspective. I really appreciate that. Quickly, let's go to a voice note, and I'll come back to you, Dr. Faith, and then we'll wrap up our discussion.
Morning, 702. This is Thabo here from Johannesburg. Yes, I don't know why we are having a back and forth with this whole Trump thing. Trump knows he's lying. The whole administration knows he's lying. The whole of America, except his delusional followers, know that he's lying. This is propaganda. This is all it is. And I don't understand why having a back and forth. Can we just move on and ignore this guy? Because he really wants attention. Because what I'm seeing here is, very soon, they are going to send military. They'll want to do what they want to do now in Nigeria, where they are saying the Christians are being persecuted. Trump is just creating a situation, propagating it, because he wants to use force ultimately. That is the playbook that they use. So, yeah, I don't know really why we're having a back and forth. Seriously, it's ridiculous.
Dr. Faith, your thoughts?
So I think the general consensus by the comments that you're receiving, Thabo, are that this whole issue of boycotting the G20 is sound and fury, signifying nothing. I think that's the general takeaway that we can get from that. But
yeah, to quote Macbeth.
Yes, of course. But I think it's interesting because, and here I'm speaking from the perspective of now South Africa engaging as a diplomatic actor and really harnessing its diplomatic enterprise in being careful on how they navigate this issue. So while there's tensions that are continuing to play in the background, as I mentioned earlier, the negotiations, the high-level engagement at the G20 level will proceed as scheduled. So the absence, yes, will have an impact on the consensus, but that will not necessarily derail the engagement. Will continue at sharper level, at leaders level, at working groups level. That will continue. The question for me is the kind of messaging that we're likely to see with the outcome. whether South Africa will really capitalize on this moment to cast a light on what we are seeing emerging globally. So this interesting moment where global power dynamics are increasingly taking on and moving towards multipolarity, that configuration is really coming to the fore. How South Africa will really prioritize the engagement at the G20 level to send out a strong message about the importance of collective action, the importance of solutions that really touch and address the core issues that face us as humanity collectively, but also the key messages that it will have in reining in the importance of solidarity. So countering a kind of public relations, public diplomacy messaging that is skillfully going to take away from the negativity and the global anarchism, but really zero in on the importance of cooperation, on the importance of rebuilding trust and building bridges despite ongoing disagreements.
I have to say thanks to both of you. We've run out of time. Really appreciate it. John Streamlau, Wits University International Relations Honorary Professor. Really thanks for your time. Dr. Faith Mabera, Post-doctoral Research Fellow at Wits University. Thanks to you both. And that was definitely an eye-opener where we were just looking at the implications of President Trump not sending a single U.S. official to the G20 meeting that is anticipated later this month. If it's going to have any effect on us as a country at all. 2 minutes to 11 o'clock.